Hello, everybody. This is Debbie, from Teacher Success Coach. Um, right. What am I grateful for today? I'm grateful for the fact that I got up in the morning and was able to connect. And I'm grateful for people actually making me see who they really are. Because there's sometimes we have expectation of people, but those are our own expectation of them. Because we constantly tend to measure other people with our own expectation, what we expect. So I'm so grateful that every day I'm beginning to see what people are really like in my circle. Because there's sometimes we expect them to be something that they're not. And when people show us the negative side of them, we need to thank them and bless them and come out of that environment. It doesn't matter who it is, because there's sometimes we should not be staying in an environment that doesn't serve us, or staying in an environment that's detrimental to us, or staying in toxic environments. Something I talk about all the time when I talk about education. In the staff room, it's very, in a lot of education establishment, I shouldn't say a lot, in some education establishment, the staff room could be very, very toxic. So I don't stay in staff room because I cannot deal with toxicity. In the same way, within your own environment, if you find the environment that you're in is toxic, you need to get out of it. It doesn't solve your mental health, and it doesn't solve you as an individual. So that's what I'm grateful for, when people actually demonstrate their true self and true nature to me. It's wonderful. Because years ago, maybe I used to be angry about it or frustrated. But nowadays, I have to bless them and thank them for demonstrating who they are. I've just come off a meeting, and it was so interesting because those are some of the things that was demonstrated. One member was saying that he feels it is important that people speak the truth, because a lot of people do not speak the truth. They kind of pretend all the time, and they enable others to have such expectation of them, which is not realistic, and that's not the true expectation of who they are. So it was interesting that this member in this meeting I had just now were actually going on about, he speak his truth, and he feel that other people should speak the truth. When they don't like something that is said in a meeting, they should voice it instead of pretending it's okay. So that was quite interesting. And I would, a number of us echo that it is important that people speak the truth instead of all this pretend that is going on. It doesn't solve and is not healthy. What I'm also grateful for today, as I said last week, I'm in a new school. And it's interesting because I teach sixth forms. And sixth form within certain schools, they're a lot more disciplined than some that, like sixth form colleges, I find in terms of the discipline there, is not as robust as it is in school. Because I guess in school they're coming from, when they're in school and you have the sixth form in school, they're continuing the discipline structure from year 7 all the way over. It doesn't matter it doesn't matter whether or not they're in the sixth form, that is continued. But when you get into a sixth form college, which I've been doing quite a few of them, the discipline is very, very different. And what I'm beginning to notice is in the sixth form colleges, discipline seems to have gone out the window, because within those colleges, I feel that the teachers are trying to support the young people in becoming accountable and responsible. And it's not happening. Because I was saying today to one of my colleagues, we need to look at these young people are still in school. The age doesn't matter. The behavior and the action hasn't changed. So even though they are in sixth form colleges, their attitude is worse than if they were in the school itself. And one of the things I'm experiencing, which is, I must say, I found very, very frustrating initially in my first week, but I'm beginning to embrace it to an extent and find ways of dealing with it. It's like the students are coming in late, the lesson starts at 9:15, all 10:30 they're strolling in. Or lesson starts at 1 o'clock, or 1:30, 2 o'clock they're strolling in, and you already start your lesson. I find that so very frustrating. And when they come in late, they're coming in on the phone. So that's something I have to say. I had to say to them today. I'm not taking that. You're coming to study, and you need to decide whether or not you want to be here, because you've made a choice. Whereas when you're in school from year 7 to year 10, you have no choice. But once you actually transition into sixth form, you've actually made a choice. So the fact that you're choosing to come to sixth form, you need to actually step up, and I'm not accepting that. So when they actually, because last week I saw that and I'm thinking, no, I can't be dealing with that. So I, re-informed that. And I feel when they realized that I was serious, they started the behavior, oh my goodness, the behavior have changed. I noticed, I was talking about the phone less, and they began to settle a little bit more and start doing the work. Because I said, if they continue delivering my lesson, I wasn't having that. And it is sad that these are young people who are 16 to 19-year-old or 17 to 19-year-old, and they still have to be treated as being in school because they're not taking responsibility and they're not accountable for the behavior. And even for their own work, they're not accountable for that. And I had to remind them that you are in sixth form, so therefore there are different expectations. And it's annoying because my expectation was incorrect, because I expected the fact that they're in sixth form, I expect a certain level of behavior, which I realized that that is not happening. So then I had to reflect and change my expectation, because that was my expectation, but that's not what I'm getting. So today what I had to do was realize that, okay, although they're 17 to 19, they're not responsible according to the age and the action they've taken to come to sixth form college, which require different set of attitude and responsibility and accountability, which they're not able to give. So I had to start treating them as if they were in school. And sadly, I had better result than my expectation of feeling that they're in sixth form, so therefore the accountability and expectation should be such, and it's not happening. So that was an eye-opener for me, because although I've taught in a number of sixth form colleges, they're all different, and some are worse than others. And when I actually spoke to one of my colleagues about the situation, one of the things she said, yes, we are stamping on this, the lateness and the attendance, because that's a major problem. So I realized that I can no longer treat them as being accountable and responsible as that institution expect. I have to flip it and treat them as if they were still in school under the same criteria of, this is what you do, etc., etc. I also had another situation where a student came to me quite very, very, very upset. And it was about her expectation. She's been friends with this other young woman, this young lady. They're now young people because they're now 16, 17 years. And what the situation was, they grew up together in primary school, from nursery, primary school, and now primary school, secondary school, and now sixth form. And one of the things she experienced was I feel that her expectation of this friend was different from what she got, because she was basing it on the fact that they spent a lot of years together, and they actually when they spend a lot of time in each other's home, etc., etc. And something I had to say to her was, you need to treat her as an individual. One of her upset was she thought she knew this friend, and she doesn't know this friend, because the thing this friend have done was, in a lot of views, unacceptable. There seems to be some form of jealousy going on there, because student A have started a business and student B haven't. Student B have not, is not a very proactive, independent student. She doesn't work extremely hard either, you know. Whereas the other student does that, and she wants to become an entrepreneur. So she started a little business, well, it's not even a little, because she's doing pretty well at it. And the friend was very upset. So the friend was very, very negative, and it became a very toxic relationship. So she came to me very upset, because after all, this is her best friend, or she thought was her best friend. And the fact that she started this business, and she thought this friend would be supporting her, and that's not what's happening. Instead, the friend was very, very negative. The friend behavior was very toxic. The friend began to spread a lot of rumors, etc., etc. So what I had to say to the student was, you need to realize that, yes, she is your friend, or was your friend from nursery, but you now need to start treating her as an individual. Because they also saw each other as sisters, because they did so many things together. They was in each other's home, sleepover, etc., etc. So I had to say to her, you need to start seeing your friend as an individual, and this is what your expectations were of this friend. And she now beginning to show her true color, that she wasn't happy for you, that you actually have started a business and you're doing well, but you wanted her to come in the business with you, but she was not interested, because that's not her passion. So you actually let that go. You didn't bother her. You just continue doing your business. And what seems to transpire is, her friend became very jealous and became very bitter about that. And I'm saying to her, well, you need to let that go, but you need to send your friend love. You may not be able to do that right now. She was really upset. I said, but you need to thank your friend, because she showed you who she really is, because you did not know who she is. You thought you knew who she was. You had expectation of what you thought she was. And I said to her, now it's time to let that friend go, because you need to leave that friendship, because that friendship isn't serving you. So you're not going to be able to do it straight away, but you need to think about it and see what you are going to do in terms of that. She was devastated. But you see, the whole thing is, as I say to her, there were signs before, but she began to ignore the signs, and she thought it was her. But now, the full extent of the situation, I think it blew up over the weekend. And last week was the first week I came to that school, but that student felt that she could talk to me. And I said to her, well, you need to send that friend blessing. You need to send that friend love. You also need to quietly thank that friend, because that friend have actually shown you who she really is, because you didn't know your friend. And I also gave her the example. I say, parents, we think we know our children, but we really don't know our children. We know our children to an extent. Nobody could know anybody fully. We know ourselves because we live in ourselves. But in terms of knowing our children, we think we know them. We have expectation. We feel that we know certain things they wouldn't do, but you also depend upon the environment and the situation in which they find themselves, which would demonstrate certain skills and behavior we never thought possible. Even that individual, might demonstrate behavior that they never see themselves as, oh my goodness, how could I be so aggressive, etc., etc. I never thought I was. But it depends on the environment and the situation they find themselves. So that's something I had to say to that student. And I had to say to her, it is good now that you all are young, and that friend actually show you who she really is. So therefore you could start letting go of that friend, and you need to thank her for really demonstrating and expressing who she is. And it is difficult because you all grew up together and you all saw yourself as siblings. You all were in each other's home, etc., etc. But on reflection, as she says, she realized that she was doing more for that friend than that friend was doing for her in the relationship. So that's something she's identified. And, as I said to her, yes, it is painful, but it is a toxic relationship which you need to start letting go. Lots of tears, lots of tears, lots of tears. But at the same time, I say to her, you have learned, and this is what growing up is all about, because we have expectation. And some of the expectation we have is our expectation of how someone ought to behave. That person may not know your expectation of them, So it's a transition period. And as I say to her, when we go into certain journeys, we are transforming ourselves and we're getting to know ourselves. And there'll be friends we're going to have, even though we had them from early childhood. But as we become older, our values and our goals doesn't align. So that sometimes we need to leave those friends behind, because those friends may not be able to identify how we are now seeing ourselves and the new person you're becoming. She understood that, but for her it was very painful because as I said, they had this lovely, what we thought or they thought were lovely, or what she thought was lovely journey. But it turned out that this friend began to be very bitter and jealous of what she was doing, although she had actually invited that friend to be part of the business with her. So those are some of the things that for me today, that's one of my, I saw it as a win, because it reinforced in my mind some of the toxic relationship that we can find ourselves in. And it actually enabled me to reflect within some relationship and environment which I find myself in. Because when things happen, we need to reflect. And as much as we give in advice to our students, we also need to reflect on, are we taking those same advice for ourselves as well? And how does that appear for us? So it was, it was a fantastic session I had with the student, later on, because that was halfway in the day. So later on, I said to her before she leave this evening, come and have a conversation. And she was beginning, because she's a very mature student, and although she's young, she's very mature in mind. And she was beginning to understand and, come to terms with it. Although she kept on telling me it's really painful because we had, we went to nursery together, etc., etc. But at the same time, she realized that, some of the signs that was being demonstrated by this friend, that it wasn't serving her. So it was quite good, because that student also tell me that she's doing self-development on herself. So that's great, because it means that in terms of her healing journey would be much faster than if she wasn't, doing those things. So that was, where I'm at today in terms of my students, and in terms of my win, and in terms of my reflection. What are your goals for this week? And what's your intention? What you intend, what you set your intention for this week, and what your goals are this week. Because I also give my students goals, because some of them had exams this morning, and some of them have exams for well, I shouldn't even say exams, it's mock, it's just testing their ability. Some of them have mock exam for the rest of the week. So I've asked them to look at what their goals are for the week, or what their intentions are. And most of them is, going through the revision process, and, what they want to do, etc., etc. So I'm asking you, what are your intentions and what are your goals for the week? There's sometimes we set our goals or our intention and we don't follow through. it is important that we follow it through, because it will help us in terms of our self-development, our mindset, our progression. So it's important that we actually set our intention, because at least you know where you're going. Because there's no point in, as you know, I constantly read from some of my mentors, there's no point in jumping in your car and you don't know where you're heading. You need to jump in your car and know where you're heading. So in terms of your goal, you know, what you intend to complete for this week. You know, whether or not you call it goal, whether or not you call it vision, whether or not you call it intention, it doesn't matter what you call it. But what have you set yourself to complete for this week? There's sometimes we set quite a lot and we realize we're not able to complete it all. But something I said to my student, at least if you set yourself 3 things and stick at it until you finish it. You know, there's sometimes other things come in the way, so you haven't finished it, but you continue it until you finish it. So at least you know at the end of the week you could feel quite good and say, yes, I have completed this task. And it actually helps you in terms of your motivation and in terms of enabling you to continue plodding on, because at least you've actually seen something completed. Anyway, I will tell you what my day is like tomorrow, because I've got another set. It's interesting because the students I'm teaching, I'm seeing them once a week, because I'm teaching so many groups. So I'm seeing them once a week, and it is psychology, but different aspect of psychology, which is lovely. And I'm also doing criminology as well. So it's really lovely that I'm, you know, venturing into my preferred area, which is quite nice. So for the rest of the week, I'm seeing different groups. I have not seen, you know, the same group twice in a week. So tomorrow I've got my second year group all day, and I'll be looking at health psychology with them. So it'll be interesting because I taught them last Tuesday. So it'll be interesting to see, you know, what their behavior is like this week. Because last week I really had to tell them, you know, I'm not going to continue like this. You know, the group I had today, I had to repeat what I said to them last week, because it was my first week, so I suppose they didn't take me serious. So today I think they got the message, you know, because one student threatened to actually, you know, threatened not to leave my class. And when she realized I was serious, she actually put her phone away. This phone, this mobile phone seems to be an extension of students' fingers. And it can be quite frustrating, especially if you are not using it as a form of resource in the class. You know, because there's sometimes we need to get them to think outside of the technology. Yes, I get them to think inside of the technology, but sometimes I want them to think independently, to write what they know, or read something from a textbook and write, instead of reading something online and writing. Because I also believe in the good old-fashioned textbook as well as electronic, you know, resources. I also feel that it's important that we remind the student that the old-fashioned textbook also have a place. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for logging on, etc. Have a fantastic night, morning, evening, where you are. And I'll see you guys tomorrow with another aspect of my students and where they're at, and how we how we connecting with each other and where we at. Take care, stay blessed, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.